Okay, now don't fret and keep the laughter to a minimum. I'm going to bring you up really close when we're doing the wiring. We are on the driver's side underneath the passenger seat. Remember, there's people that's new to this, so try to be cool about it. They need to know where stuff is located too. Welcome back to the community, everybody, and thank you all for being part of it. I appreciate it. Please hit the like button. It helps the algorithm a lot. And please subscribe if you hadn't done so yet. Today, we're going over generator versus alternator, technically speaking, how to convert over easily with the wiring. And we're going to go over a lot of tips and different things that you may or may not know. Bob, I can't remember his last name, I'm sorry, he posted in the comments and said, hey, are you going to do that the alternator thing? I forgot about it. So I thought I'll do it this week and get it out of the way. And it'll teach you how to do the wiring conversion easily without adding a bunch of wire and going crazy. And we're going to talk about the differences if you need one or don't. So let's get on it. Now, something I did want to bring up, because everybody deserves recognition, is my new VW Trends came today, and my buddy Ben is in here. So I'm going to show you right now. Now, when you go to page 10, you're going to see Ben and his beautiful family. He's a club member of Slades VW community. And there is his Super. And I just thought it was great that Dan, who is the owner of VW Trends, who brought it back to life, thankfully, what a great magazine, he spotlighted Ben Reynolds, and he is a great guy. We talk privately back and forth. A great effort, a lot of family history with this. So when you get a chance, grab VW Trends magazine and go ahead and give them some support. They do deserve it. And check out the article that Dan did on Ben, technically speaking. But thanks, Ben, for being a good friend of the community, and also congratulations on your article. Let's get started on today's DIY. So we have a generator and alternator here. Right now, I have to get a one-post alternator like you see here. I didn't order it yet. I actually forgot, but we're still showing, how you convert, tips and tricks, and the wiring. The wiring is the main thing I want to show so that you understand what to do. But we're going to go over a few things so you know. Your generator is typically 30 amps, okay? They did make a 38 amp unit. They were mostly used in 69, I think the 71 buses and the VW things. So I'm not saying don't use a generator, but if you start getting into heavy stereo equipment, extra lighting, things of that nature that's going to consume a lot more power, then you're going to want to switch to an alternator. Many people run generators their whole life and are still running them to this day and have never had an issue. With a generator, basically, you might have to replace the brushes or the regulator, but that's really not a big deal. It's much less maintenance. Alternators come in 55, 60, 75, 90, 95 amp. They're pretty strong. So, I mean, if you're getting into a 90 amp, just think that's 3 times what the generator is at 30 amp. So you are boosting up in power on the alternator, which is a good thing. I mean, for the stuff that we run today, plugging phones in, and I know somebody will say phones don't pull much, but when you start adding everything up together with stereo and phone and extra driving lights, things of that nature, you're going to start pulling more power. Now, the generator, as you can see, is smaller in size, but at the back, they are the same size. Now, they get wider at the front, obviously, with the alternator. So they sell a generator to alternator conversion kit like you see here. And that technically is a big help because everything is there that you need. Now, something you want to check if you're going to use some of your stuff over, if you're going to use your fan over, clean it up really good. Okay, you can see where I dipped this and I didn't dip it deep enough. Check around the washer area for cracks. Go over that area really good. Wire wheel it clean and make sure that's where they tend to crack. So make sure that this is not cracked or you're going to have an issue. Of course, you know, and I'm sure you're familiar with these washers. Those are spacers that go behind here to adjust the tension on the belt. These washers are the same identical washers that you're going to use when you put the fan on the alternator when you're converting over. You want to make sure this fan is centered in the fan shroud. So the washers are like the belt tensioner. It's going to adjust the fan back and forth so it don't rub inside the fan shroud. The alternator generator stand is different, like you see right here. So you got to make sure you change that out. And I won't get in depth today. I already done fuel pump videos. You can look in the playlist. Your fuel pump is different also because it will rub the alternator. So when you change the fuel pump though, you also have to change the rod. There's two different lengths rod. And I know you're thinking, where are you going with this? From generator to alternator, the length does change on the fuel pump rod. So that's where I'm going with that.
Now, as you notice, the generator fuel pump is straight up and down since the diameter of the generator is smaller and has the clearance. And it's a 108 millimeter push rod. The alternator is angled slightly towards the distributor, as you can see, with a 100 millimeter push rod. Now, there's a difference on them, and it won't run right if the wrong push rod is installed. That should help explain things, hopefully.
A lot of people have swapped them out, and all of a sudden, my car isn't running, the pressure's too high, the pressure's too low, or something can break. So you want to make sure it isn't just a matter of, I'm going to swap the alternator out and get the generator out of there. You have to do the wiring, which I'm going to show you up close in a moment on how to convert the wiring over safely. But also the fuel pump has to be changed. The stand has to be changed. So this isn't just something that you slap an alternator in. It's not hard to do, but you got to make sure you cover all the bases. So when you have a generator, you have an external regulator. It's not built in. I have quite a few of these actually. So this will be on the inside of the car, and I'm going to show you how to convert the wiring over in there. And you have two posts on here in the ground, and we'll go over that. When you have a alternator like this one, okay, I believe this came out of the 74 Super that was here, you have an externally regulator. I didn't say that right, did I? An external regulator. And after that, they went to a one pole, and that's what I'm going to order. So we have two posts on here. Let's start into the wiring. Forgot a few things. Here is your alternator generator strap. This is a German factory one. Clean it up. I can't find my other one. I already cleaned one up with the wire wheel. It looks beautiful. These fit beautiful. When you buy the aftermarket ones, they don't fit very well. I've tried one on a motor I was rebuilding for somebody. Now this one, Save the V-Dub, Randy Kelso sent me, and I am going to try this. This is one of the newer style ones. I haven't used one yet, but this looks pretty interesting instead of trying to reach the nut clear up underneath. I want to try that one out though. Now, when you get your new alternator, if you decide to go with a chrome pulley setup, don't do that, okay? The belt slips on the chrome after a while. I know some of you may say, I've had a chrome one for years. I've never had an issue. I'm glad. I really mean that. However, they should have did the chrome on the front of the pulley, not on the inside where the belt rides, because I tried one before, had a lot of chrome parts on my Harley, but I really don't like it on a pulley where the belt's trying to have friction and turn. So be careful with that. So we're at the back of the car, and here is the wiring that goes to it. Now on your generator, and I'm going to bring you up close here, you have two posts, and I'm going to bring you in now. The posts that you have are D plus and DF, okay? And then you have a Phillips screw with a ground wire. Your factory wiring will be red that went to the D plus. Your green goes to the DF. And then your brown is the ground wire that goes onto the generator's Phillips screw. So when we are switching over, this is just the outside wiring. I'm going to show you what to do on the inside to eliminate the regulator when you're switching over and converting. The wiring here now, the red will go to the post on the single wire alternator. The green will plug in on the new alternator like you see here. And the brown is a ground to the alternator. So it will go on the Phillips screw. What I like to do, and this is just me, it doesn't mean you have to do it, I always run another ground off of there onto the body or to the fan shroud. That's up to you. Maybe that's overkill, I'm not sure. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go inside the car, and I'm going to show you how to eliminate the regulator that's external from a generator and get rid of it, and to tie a few wires together properly. Let's go. Okay, now don't fret and keep the laughter to a minimum. I'm going to bring you up really close when we're doing the wiring. We are on the driver's side underneath the passenger seat. Remember, there's people that's new to this, so try to be cool about it. They need to know where stuff is located too. There's only one reason you would need to run a new wire. The wire that I'm going to show you that goes to the back, you might want to replace, but that's your call. You don't have to. So let's come up close and see how the conversion's done over to alternator wiring without a bunch of fuss. So we are up close to the regulator. This is from the generator. We're going to remove this, remove this, remove the blue wire, remove the green wire, okay, and your large red wire that goes into the engine compartment. There should be a Phillips screw holding it. So we're gonna, whoops, we're gonna take that off. Just take your time, move slow. Don't do nothing stupid. We're gonna remove the regulator. That's been in there a long time. Could be the original one, possibly. I'm on an angle with the screwdriver because of the ductwork coming from the heater boxes. There we go. Let me get in front of you 1 second and get the screw out. And as you see the brown wire, remember the brown wire out there that went to the generator, that ground? It went on here. Now we are going to go ahead and take a screw out of here. A little hard for you to see. It's a Phillips screw. You can't miss it. It's like a self-tapper on that one. Going to remove another screw. That's a mounting screw. You can tell the regulator's falling. That's the last one. Self-tapper. There is your regulator. Don't throw these out. These are the good old, this needs cleaned up, but that's the good old Bosch German ones. I think I'm going to clean a bunch of them up and throw them on the marketplace because I always run the alternators now. So I even have an NOS generator that I'm going to let go of. So anyhow, what we are going to do now is show you how to convert the wiring over for alternator. First things first, take your brown wire and just clean it up a little bit. You don't want no corrosion on there because I did see some. That is the ground wire, so it really matters. And we're going to clean up where it attaches to the body. Take your self-tapping one. I'll be out of your way in a second. And we are going to screw that to the chassis. Make sure it's tight. And like I said, it is vital that you clean up the connector and clean up the chassis where it's going to, and then you can brush something over this if you're afraid of rust. All right, next we are going to go ahead and take our blue wire and we're going to connect it to the green wire, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. You're going to see these, I got paint all over this, I don't feel like cleaning it up right now, these connectors that are factory on the Beetles. You can buy them online, and it makes it nice and neat. So all as you're basically doing is plugging your green wire in one side. Try to get this out of the way. There we go. And your blue wire in the other side. And that's it. Now, I'm a little odd, so I like to take and wrap tape around this, electrical tape, or a shrink wrap if you want, so that that's together. So that's what I like to do. I got to crimp these and make them better because this one's even loose, but I wanted to show you the blue and green go together. So we're going to tuck that down out of the way, and we are down to these 3 wires. And I don't have a large connector, so I'm going to splice a wire onto this. Something I wanted to tell you, if you're going over to an alternator, and that's why you're here basically, you can switch this over to a new 8-gauge wire and run it through to the engine compartment. Mine's in good shape, so I'm really not going to bother doing that. But I am going to snip this off, and I'm going to put a connector on there that will fit this, and I'll show you what we're going to use to tie all 3 together. Now, what I did do is I had to put a larger connector on the end because these are big. I think this is 10 gauge. And I went ahead and put some shrink wrap on there to make sure it's secured good and doesn't come loose. Now, as I showed you on, get it up out of there, the green and the blue wire, them factory VW connectors. Now, the one I'm going to show you right here is rather large for the larger wires. These came on 75 and up when they did away with the regulator. So I believe it's 75. It definitely wasn't 74. But you can get these online on any of the vendors. What we're going to do is we are going to plug that in. Hard to plug in the bigger ones. Like this, we'll go over it in 2 seconds here. Let me get them plugged in. This is eliminating the regulator so that you can have a 1-post alternator with an internal regulator. That makes sense? So we have this wire that's going to the battery. This wire is in the harness going to the front. And this one is going to the back, to the alternator. So you're taking the 3 wires that were on the regulator and you're tying them together, the 3 large wires. The green and blue you're connecting together. The green comes from the back of the car to the alternator now, and the blue goes to the front. And you're going to clean and ground the brown wire to the chassis. I hope that all makes sense to you. It should be cut and dry, pretty easy. It never hurts to replace the wires going out to the engine though. This thick red wire, the green wire, and the ground wire, you can change them if you would like. That's just a bonus if you do. And the reason is there's a lot of heat in this engine compartment, which I'm sure you're quite aware of. These getting hot, cold, they end up brittle. Am I going to replace mine? Probably. I probably will. I say I won't, but I will. But what I'm going with here is the constant heat, 50, 60-year-old wires. Get yourself a nice new 8-gauge wire for the red one. And I forget the other size. These smaller ones are probably like a 14, I believe, but I'd have to check. And run some new wires through there. It ain't going to hurt, but that's up to you. If you want to do it the easy way, that's fine. Just make sure to do exactly what I did. So what we do want to go over is how to change the generator over to the alternator without removing the engine from the car. Now you can remove it if you'd like to, and I'll go over that in a second. So let's get started on this part. Now we'll go back to the engine on the stand that's completed almost, but I'm showing you this because I have dual carburetors on the other motor. So if you have a stock engine, you're going to go ahead and first of all, disconnect your battery. Let's do this again. Disconnect your battery. Please don't forget to. It's very important. So you've got your battery disconnected. You can do this in a couple different orders, or you can drop the motor in 30 minutes and make it easy. But if you really are fussy about leaving it in, you're going to go ahead and remove the fuel line from your carburetor, first pinching it off so the fuel don't go everywhere, and remove your little wires from your carburetor. Take your two 13mm nuts off and pull your carburetor off. See how easy that was? That was fast. It don't work that way. Once your carburetor's off, shove a rag in the hole to the intake so that you don't get a bunch of little particles going down inside. You should always do that. All right, now we're back over here. And like I said, keep the laughter to a minimum. I'm just trying to help a few folks that wanted a quick video. You have your intake across here. Now, you can go ahead and remove this bolt and this bolt, okay? You're not going to be able to get to the bottom two because the intake manifold, you know, with your dual port, single port is going to be in the way. Not a problem. Now, these two bolts are removed. You have your strap, a strap that goes around your alternator or generator. You're going to loosen the bolt on your strap. Now, leave it lay there for right now, obviously. You don't have to bend it and try to get it out of there. Now, as you see, right here, see that 10mm bolt? You're going to loosen that up. You also have one on the other side. It's right down in there, just so you see where I was at. Okay. Now, you are going to go ahead and reach underneath. You're going to remove the rod from the thermostat. Your thermostat is underneath here, and I'm going to show you a picture of it right now and a short video of me putting the rod on one. So we're going to screw the thermostat on. Just until it snugs up. Got to loop this through here. Okay. The nut started. Yes, you're going to loosen that rod up and get the thermostat off of there, because when you pull your intake up, you will break it, and they're not cheap and not easy to find. So you're going to loosen the thermostat up and take it off of the rod. Okay. You've already got the bolts on each side of there done. You have one more around the back on this style. As we go around the back, you have a bolt. Mine's all loosened up right there. That is where your oil cooler is. You're going to go ahead and loosen that up. And then at that point, you should be able to grab a hold. Now you're going to, if you have your hoses, don't forget to take them off your ductwork. I think you know that. Then you're going to go ahead and you're going to lift up. Mine's bolted down. You're going to lift this up, your fan shroud, slightly, so you can get to the lower bolts on this here, I call it on the face of here. You're going to get to that bolt right there. Here's another one because I have a bunch of them. The two bolts at the top you took out prior. These two bolts you're going to be able to remove once you lift your fan shroud up a little bit. Then you'll be able to get them because they're behind the intake manifold. Now, once you have done that, the bolts are removed, all four bolts on here. This is going to be loose. All you got to do is pick up slightly on your fan shroud. This is in the car still. And you're going to pull, I can't show you obviously on here. You're going to pull this whole assembly out, and it's going to look like that. This whole assembly will pull out. And then if you didn't buy a kit that came with your fan and everything that you need, then you'll be popping this apart, changing your generator over to an alternator and putting this back together and shimming it properly. I hope that made some sense. It should have. It's not hard to do it in the car. It just takes a little bit of common sense, and take your time and move slow. Don't be an idiot. Move slow and take your time. But don't forget that thermostat underneath, because if you start pulling up in a shroud, you're going to break something. I hope this part was helpful. See, I told you. I knew I had one. Check it out. Whoops, Robert Bosch. Look at that. Sitting under my workbench. Pretty cool. Remanufactured by Robert Bosch. So I get too much crap. A lot of this stuff's going because I don't really use generators anymore. So a lot of people like that original stuff. That crap's all going. Now, something you do need to know between the difference, and I'm not trying to talk you into switching to an alternator, that generators charge very little, if at all, when they're at idle, where an alternator technically will cut in at a very low idle and start charging. So it does make a difference. I guess that's why a lot of people do upgrade like that. Remember, the more loads on the system, as I said before, stereo, driving lights, phone chargings, Bluetooth, things like that, then you probably are better off switching over and going, with a 60 or 75 amp alternator at least. Don't just buy a 50 amp, just go higher, at least double it to 60. Uh, I think that there's a lot of advantages and disadvantages to alternators. And as I said, with a generator, you might have to change a regulator or you might have to change some brushes. That's all that can really go wrong with them. With an alternator, you're replacing the whole thing. So there are advantages and disadvantages, and I'm sure a lot of the new alternators are not that great. So that was your DIY tutorial, so to speak, on a generator to alternator conversion. That was giving you different amperages, things of that nature, and like, do you really need to do it? And again, if you're running just a stock Beetle, stock radio, and all that stuff, you probably don't have to. But most of us today are amping things up a little bit. I didn't mean to say it that way. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I hope the wiring part was definitely helpful to some folks. I hope you all have a great upcoming weekend. We're getting back to doing live chats very shortly here because I miss hanging out online on Sunday nights with you folks. I'll see you soon.